unknowns. What do they want? Are we about to come face to face with them, whether we're ready or not? Find out from the world's leading experts in this very special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio.
You're listening to RNN Radio, where thinking people tune in.
Well, this is the Raiders Live News Talk Radio Show. I am your host, of course, Thomas Horn, and as always, I'm joined in the studio this evening by that beautiful Pied Piper of Pony Power herself, Nita.
Good evening.
And who else but Joe Artis? Hey. We'll welcome you back to this special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio on the timely subject, official disclosure, prepare for contact. Now, this segment, we welcome to this special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio, David Ruffino. David is a well-known UFO and abduction phenomenon researcher with over 45 years of background in the subject matter. He is an alien abduction counselor, an ordained minister. He has spoken in Roswell on radio shows. He is the author of the upcoming book due out in just the next few weeks, as a matter of fact. We're going to talk to him about that tonight, titled Unholy Communion, the Alien Abduction Phenomenon, where it originates and how it stops. How important is this book? Dr. Michael Heiser, in his endorsement, says if even 10% of the witnesses in this book are honest about what happened to them, and in particular, how they were rescued from their torment, then David and Joseph have earned the right to be heard, end quote. This book, Unholy Communion, uses scores of eyewitnesses and experiencer accounts given in person to David and his investigators. Well, we're going to be asking him all about it tonight. And David, without further pause, please welcome to this special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio, author and ordained minister David Ruffino. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Tom. It certainly is a pleasure to be here.
Well, it absolutely is our certainty. It's our delight you could join us. As a matter of fact, just the hour before, we was also talking to Joe, your co-author and your helper there, and we have a lot of territory that we want to cover tonight, and we want to talk to you specifically about your research. But I want to begin by just asking you the same general question that we've been asking everybody. We talked to Nick Pope earlier today, Stanton Friedman. We're talking to everybody asking the same introductory question: are we alone in the universe? This is the question that's coming out of the Royal Society meeting over the last couple of weeks. I've got something like 15 headlines in front of me. In fact, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday, the headline on the Telegraph out of Britain, Royal Astronomer says aliens may be staring us in the face. I mean, this is the president of the Royal Society, the astronomer, to the Queen of England, suggesting that alien intelligence may be looking right at us right now, studying us right now, and we may not even be advanced enough to know it. What's going on, David?
Interesting that you bring that up, because if you look at it from my standpoint, from a theological standpoint, you can also say that. If you look at things from, like I do, that these things are interdimensional, or what I like to call spiritual, sure, they're looking at us all the time. They're in another dimension, but they're looking at us. The Bible tells us that we're surrounded by a great host of witnesses, referring to the spiritual realm. So certainly, I agree with him in what he says, but I think that we have different ideas of who the intelligence is and what their purpose is. If I'm not mistaken, he's talking about, and I haven't read the article, but I'm kind of involved in this because I've read about these things before, and they try to say that perhaps we are the aliens, that we were brought to Earth a long time ago, or seeds were planted here by the aliens, and stuff like that. So, while what he says is essentially true, we just come from two different camps as to where these beings are and where they come from.
Yeah, well, I think you might be absolutely right about him. The one thing that is nice is to finally see the highest levels, the top shelf, if you will, of the scientific community starting to take this phenomenon as real and saying that it deserves the kind of credible research that people like you have been doing in the past, and maybe now they're starting to catch up. Well, we can only hope that they can, and frankly, with all respect to Lord Martin Rees, for this hour, I don't even care what he thinks. I want to know what David Ruffino thinks. So tell us what it is that you do in regard to your field of study, your research, your alien abduction prevention ministry.
Well, I've got a lot of irons and a lot of fires, so to speak. My wife and I, we run the Delusion Resistance Ministries on the Internet, where we expose different things in society as being part of the strong delusion that the Bible talks about that will be coming upon the earth on the last days. Jesus said that just before he returns, it was going to be like it was in the days of Noah. And if you've done some study, which I know you have, Tom, about the days of Noah, you can see a lot of parallels. And one of those parallels is the alien abduction phenomena, as it is correlated with before the flood. We believe that the angels of the fallen angels that rebelled against God came down and had relations with human women and produced the Nephilim, the giants that are mentioned in the Bible. So what we're trying to do is just show that what's happening today happened before, and I believe it's in Ecclesiastes. It says there's nothing new under the sun. It basically says that everything that's happening now has happened before, and it happened in the days of old. So we're just trying to show people this in an effort to get people to realize that, this is nothing new, that God said it was going to happen, that it is happening, and helping them to get prepared. We also have a ministry called PAPSI, the Paranormal and Alien Abduction Problem Solvers International, where we counsel or we guide people who have had alien abduction experiences, and they want it to be gone. Some people, believe it or not, enjoy being abducted by aliens, and I think, believe it or not, they do. There's a lot of people that are being abducted, and they don't want it. They've been harmed by it psychically. They've been harmed by it physically, spiritually, and every other way you can think of, and they want it to end. And we believe, and it's proved out by some of the evidence in the book, that we know the way, and it works. A lot of people have been freed from this. So that's the two of the bigger irons that we have in the fire when it comes to this. We work with PAPSI with co-minister Jim Wilhelmsen from Echoes of Enoch, who is a reverend also, and he is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to the scriptures, and he's been involved in deliverance ministry for quite a few years too. So in conjunction working with him and my wife also, and a lot of other ministers that have joined us too, all around the United States, Canada, Europe, a couple in Africa, and other places that I can't recall right now. India, yes. We were all over the world trying to help people to get free from alien abductions and from paranormal problems. We see this thing as being paranormal problems and alien abductions being one and the same, just the same thing with two different packages. So we're here to try to help, and we've been pretty successful. Thank God for that. So that's what we do, Tom, in a nutshell.
I've got to kind of follow up on something you said. The idea of a person wanting to be abducted. What has your conclusions around that led to it? Does it have something to do? I was a pastor for a long time, so immediately the light went on in my head, and I'm wondering, is it because no matter how terrible it is, it gives them a sense of importance or a sense of belonging to a certain community, or is it something more like abused spouse syndrome? I mean, have you ever tried to figure out what would be the psychological condition that would cause a person to actually want to be abducted?
Well, we've come up with two things in that regard that I can think of right off the bat. One of them is that everybody wants to be wanted and they want to be needed, and some people actually feel that they're wanted and needed by these beings because if you've read anything about the abduction experience, which I know you have and a lot of the listeners have, one of the things that they do, aside from basically committing rape against their victims, is they tell them that they're special, that they're needed for a special mission in this world, and who not having any guidance wouldn't fall for that, But you're right too when you mentioned what we call Stockholm syndrome. People fall basically in love with their captors, and they want to do more and more for them. But like a codependency, I see it. Maybe like a woman that's hates her husband because he mistreats her, but wants to stay anyway because for some reason she feels that she needs to, and so those are the two reasons that I can think of, and I've molded over in my mind a lot too, because I want to understand. I don't want to judge people out of ignorance. I want to understand everything I can when I'm trying to help people. So yeah, those are basically the two things that I come up with.
Well, that's very interesting, and I have to say that I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of research and study in this field over the years. I've interviewed the who's who, everybody who's supposed to be anybody, I think, at one time or another, and I think that was the first moment. Now that you've said it, it seems reasonable. It seems like I should have heard this before, but I think that's the first time I ever heard anybody say that there were those abductees that they're trying to help who actually want to be abducted, and the reasoning behind it also resonates as being very true with my own given years of experience as a pastor and people who are in abuse situations. And it's fascinating, your answer is fascinating, yet ultimately there is a malevolence here, and I note that even among these Royal Academy scientists, in fact, two of the news stories, I've got them right here in front of me. One's from the Times Online, another is from the AFP, the Associated French Press. The one from the French press, the headline is calling ET a smart move, ? And the one from the Times, January 27th, which was right when they were started the first Academy meetings, what if the aliens decide they don't like us? And the subtitle, scientists may be making a colossal mistake by deciding to contact extraterrestrial life rather than just listening. I understand that your worldview would be entirely different than these scientists, but it is interesting that some of their own scientists as well agree that, hey, we might not be talking about some benign, friendly little force out here. These things may want to have us for lunch tomorrow, and maybe it's not a good idea to be sending out signals. All right, I wanted to make that comment because you really got my gray matter firing now, David. But let me get back to your research. What was the impetus for writing this book, Unholy Communion, the alien abduction phenomenon, where it originates and how it stops?
The main thing was that I had noticed that from my own experience when I was a child, and after I became a Christian, being involved in some of the deliverance stuff, and having some encounters myself after I was a Christian with demonic entities, and I have to stress that they were different. Once you become a Christian, you realize that these things aren't from outer space, and you realize where they're from, and so you see the difference. So there was that. And also, Heaven's Gate was one of the things that really opened up a lot of eyes. I know Joe would say that, and Jim would probably too, Jim Wilhelms. For a while, we kind of toyed with it. We knew that in our own experiences that the name of Jesus stopped these things, and we'd heard it from maybe one or two people. But Heaven's Gate, when it happened, showed us that this thing was not innocuous. It was very serious. And to take the lives of all those people, we saw that and we said, you know what, we have to do something so this doesn't happen. If we can, prevent maybe one leader from not starting this garbage and leading all these people astray, then our work is more than accomplished. Like I said, it was an eye opener, and it caused us to say, hey, we got to do something right now, not next week, not next year, but right now. And so. I know all of our ministries basically started up right around the same time, around the time of Heaven's Gate, and have been going pretty strong ever since. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there that are telling people, these things are the Nephilim, they're fallen angels and stuff like that. But there are so many ministries that are just leading people to a certain precipice and not answering the whole thing. And they were leading them to say, okay, well, these things are demonic, and you can have help, but just dropping them off there. And I'm reminded of back in eastern New York, back in the 1800s, there would be traveling preachers who would walk around or cart around, and they would lead people to Jesus, and then they'd leave town. And all these people were left with nothing. They were left with a basic knowledge in a Bible. And interestingly enough, that is where the Mormons started. That's where the Jehovah's Witnesses started, because they were given a little bit and left to fend for themselves. And we didn't want to do that. We want to to help people know the whole story, to help them know the truth, and to help them every step of the way that we can, as long as they want help. So that was the impetus. We don't want to leave people hanging on the cliff. We want to pull them away from the cliff so that they don't fall off. And we've been quite successful a number of times. And every day is a new day. And Jim gets calls all the time. I get them from time to time. And when you get off the phone with somebody or an internet letter telling you that that thank you, you helped me to understand what's been happening to me. And when you pray for somebody and you lead them to Christ on the phone, and you know that they're not going to have troubles anymore, and they know that they can come to you anytime that they want to, via phone, or if they're close, in a restaurant or something like that, to get help. So we wanted to complete everything that a lot of other people were just leaving at a certain point. So that was our impetus, Tom.
I have a question. I wanted to know, what is the youngest abductee that you have ever helped?
Wow, you know what? Most of them that we help are in their late teens or early 20s. Nothing any earlier than that. We did have one young man. He came into our chat room, and because we have a chat room, we meet every Monday and Thursday. We talk to anybody that wants to talk about it.
What's
and and it's a remnant call, and I can give you the address and stuff in a little while, but. And he came on, and he said that he was going out into his backyard, and back by the shed there was ghosts in the shed, and he thought it was. He said, he says, I think this is really cool, and both Jim and I, this isn't cool. You've got to understand it. We walked through the whole thing with him. And this is a little guy from Australia, and his mother was there, and I think that she kind of urged him on to talk with us, because kids, they don't want to listen to their parents. They'd rather listen to an outsider. By the time we were done, the boy, who is a Christian, growing up in a Christian family, knew where the ghosts were coming from, who they were, and knew not to go out by the back and mess around with them. And we told him that if he could get an adult from his church or something, or a group of adults to go out there and cast the thing out of there, that would be a good idea. But he agreed not to go back there, and so I would say he was probably around 7 or 8 years old. And
wow.
And what a satisfying feeling it was to know that you helped somebody halfway around the world, with something like this. So that would probably be the youngest one, I would say, 7 or 8 years old.
In this book, you seem to present the book, The Unholy Communion, where it originates and how it stops. You have a courtroom setting. Why is that?
Oh, well, figured if you have testimonies, the best place to present a testimony is in a courtroom. We had our little talk down in Roswell in 2008. One of the questions that we were asked by I think it was Peter Robbins, why we did this, and actually he was accusing us of calling the UFO researchers the bad guys, and I said no, that's not the case. We're going after the entities here, but it's just that for 50 or 60 years now, that's all you've heard is the scientific and the pseudoscientific aspect of this. The minute that you bring up the Bible or you bring up Jesus, my goodness, the doors close, they lock, the book's shut, and the briefcases are buttoned up, and people start running away. And like I told them, I said, for 60 years, you guys have had the witness stand, and now it's our turn. It's only going to be for an hour and a half, or 2 hours. But now that people have got all the testimony, now they can make a right judgment. You can't make a right judgment if you only have the prosecution's testimony and not the defendant's and stuff like that. So we wanted to present everything, and we felt that the best way to do that was a trial, and it worked out pretty well. The other side didn't really see it as being very good. They criticized us for quite a while, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 months on their internet radio sites and stuff like that. But you know what? When you come out with the truth and you make people question their philosophy, it sometimes hurts a little bit. But and one of the interesting things too that we presented was that the people that were hearing it weren't only the jury, but they were the judge, because after hearing the testimony, they would have to make a judgment as to what to believe and what not to believe. They would have to weigh all the evidence, and so by making that judgment, they would be the ones that would be going out and telling other people what the truth is, what we feel the truth is, what we know the truth is. But Yeah, so that's why we did it that way, and it worked pretty well. I was really satisfied with it and with the results, and I know that a lot of other people were too. I don't know if either of you have seen the video that we shot there, but if you get a chance, go to CE4 and see if you can pick up a copy, because I think that you'll just be blown away by all the evidence that was. But you can read the book too. Buy the book.
Yeah. Well, and I'm listening to you talk. I'm actually thinking back about the video. I did watch that, and I watched the presentation. I believe it last year or year before. That you and Joe Jordan gave in the main building there at Roswell, and you had the people come up on the stage, 10 or 12 different people. And frankly, you're talking about, people have to weigh this evidence for themselves. It's always hard for a skeptic or a philosopher to argue with a person that has had an experience, because when they've had an experience and the deliverance has worked,
right.
Frankly, they don't even care if other people agree with them or don't agree with them. It doesn't make any difference. Their life has been changed, and there was a power that was involved with it with which they believe. And, of course, in your book, as we're going to find out later, we find out exactly what that power is. I want to ask you, Nita's got another question, so does Joe, but I want to ask you first, you're also a minister, and I imagine then that you pastor this congregation, if you will, a congregation without walls. You're talking about doing chat rooms and all that, but look, I know how it works. You wind up being a pastor to these people because a lot of time you've invested this time in them on a weekly basis. You're pastoring these people, and maybe they do have a local church, but they can't really go to the local church or even the local pastor and talk to them about their alien abduction phenomenon and how they were delivered from it. So you actually take on kind of a pastoral relationship with these people, and I imagine in some of these cases it means that you have to sacrifice a lot of your time for this ministry, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. But you know what? It's a labor of love, and we really love it, because you could get a call at 11 o'clock at night, you get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and for some reason, when that phone rings, it's not like, oh my goodness, I got to work tomorrow, why are they calling me? No, you get up and you talk with them for an hour or two or three, and it's just so rewarding, it really is. And when you get off the phone and you realize, hey man, I just made a difference in somebody's life, that just totally it fills you with joy, and that lasts for many days, after the experience. But no, it's incredible, and to get the emails that say, you're saying exactly what I've known the whole time, and you mentioned churches. A lot of the people that come to us, they don't necessarily agree with churches. They've had bad experiences in churches, or a lot of people believe what they've heard, so they'll hear a friend say, you don't want to go to church, they're all hypocrites, but they know that they could come to us, and because we're already believing something that most of the church thinks is off the wall and kooky and nuts and everything else, that's kind of a door right there that helps them to know that we care, like you said, putting our reputation on the line, so to speak. By doing that, people automatically respect you, and it's just such a blessing. I can't, words cannot express how much of a joy you get after you get off the phone or you minister to somebody via letter or by the chat room. It's just really incredible.
All right, well, I lied. I said I was going to let Nita ask her question, but now you made me think of another question that I want to ask, and then she's going to get to ask her question. How do traditional pastors in general accept what you do?
Oh boy!
Oh boy, is right.
I spent a good 25 years looking for a church that would recognize the ministry that I do and would accept it. And the majority of that time, well, all of that time actually, you get the little snickers, the little wagging of the head. Pastors would just look at me like I was crazy. Like, why are you wasting your time on this community? It's all crazy. It's all nuts. Why aren't you doing something more important? And the whole time they don't realize that we're doing something to help people get prepared or get free from something that's going to come upon this world any time now, and it's totally going to dupe these pastors that think it's nothing, and they're not going to be prepared. But like Jim says in the room a lot of times, the people that have laughed at us and shook their head from side to side or giggled when we walked in the room, those are going to be the people that are going to go, hey, we do know some people that are aware of what's going on. Now we're going to have to contact them. And our prayer is always that the people that that have kind of rejected us don't fall away, because it's going to be a very enticing delusion and deception when it finally comes into fruition. And like the Lord said, He said, "Is anybody going to have faith on the earth when I return?" So we just hope and pray that people will start to wake up, and people are really starting to wake up and realize that this is a real thing. We see it more and more. As a matter of fact, what was it, 2008, when we weren't speaking, we had a table, Jim and I, and we had a lot of people come up, and believe it or not, most of them were from Roswell, and most of them were Christians, and they were finally starting to say, what you're saying, we've thought for a long time. And because the years before that, they would come up to the table or wouldn't come up at all, and most of the time it was people from out of town or Christians from out of town. But just to see the Christians coming up and saying, "Yeah, I'm finally starting to get it," that's real exciting, because now you got not just 3 or 4 of us, but you got 8, 10, 12, 20, 100, that are going to start getting on the bandwagon and starting to get into this and to minister. So, yeah.
Well, and what I'm hoping, frankly, look, I was a pastor for a long time, 25 years in the institution, traditional, but I do know something about mission fields, and I know something about numbers and how you calculate what it takes to affect certain geographical realities. You, Jim Williamson, Joe Jordan, a handful of people. And yet, statistically, we know that it's 10,000 to maybe hundreds of thousands of people per year that are experiencing alien abduction phenomenon. How big is this mission field?
Oh, it's incredibly big, and that's why I said I'm glad that the Christians are starting to wake up, because if I can get 5 people to wake up, and those 5 people can get 5 people each to wake up, within a year's time, we can have a ministry field or a ministry warrior team that's phenomenal, and like I get letters all the time, I want to join you, I want to help you, what can I do? And so in our missionary field, in our PAPSI website is growing leaps and bounds. We're adding counselors and helpers all the time that just want to deliver people from these lies. So as the need grows, and as the abductee population grows, so does the counselors and the helpers that want to help people. So I see it as keeping up neck and neck, and soon in one of these days we're going to overcome. And I forgot to say, and you mentioned churches, and I did spend 25 or some odd years looking for a church, and I finally found one. About four years ago, a friend led me to it, and I couldn't believe how the pastor he was saying, "Oh, what a wonderful ministry! I can't believe somebody is ministering and doing this stuff." So, although it took a long time and it was very discouraging, after a while I was led to the right place that I needed to be, and now I have all the support and encouragement that I need. My pastor, Tom Mooney, he's phenomenal. He really is. And when we have our days when we're a little discouraged or something else, because that happens too. It's not all roses, but when we're discouraged, I can go to him and just say, "Hey, I just need an uplifting right now," and he'll pray for me and counsel me a little bit, and then I'm back on the racetrack from the pit stop, and I'm in the race again. So
all right, one other quick question along that same line, and then we'll move forward, is that not just pastors, but what do Christians in general think about what you're doing?
They're just like the pastors, actually. They're about 50-50. Some of them are really enthused about it. Some of them are, like I said, are starting to wake up and understand what's going on. But some of them still look at you like you're a whack job, and that don't sit next to me at church and stuff like that. Christians tend to. It's been my experience that when they're faced with something that they don't understand, they just put their head in the sand and wait, and hopefully it'll go away. But this thing is not going to go away, and part of our ministry is to explain to Christians this isn't going away. This is going to get a lot worse before Jesus comes back and things get better. So you better be prepared about it, or prepared for it, or you're going to get lost in it, or you're going to fall for it. So they're about 50-50 right now. It's better than it was, though. I'll tell you, it used to be like 95-5 when we first started out. So the church is waking up. It's taken a while. I think that maybe the Lord can give them a good injection of caffeine, and we can get them on board.
So how do you deal with that whenever you sit next to someone or you're talking in a group of people and the subject comes up? How do you deal with that?
I'm not a very subtle person. I just come out and say, you know what, you got to get your act together and start realizing that this is real. And if they get mad, they get mad. If not, I can talk to them some more. We visited a couple of churches down in Roswell when we were down there in 2008 to talk, and interestingly enough, they were both Spanish churches, and boy, they just took this message and they just went like a bonfire with it. That really encouraged us too. And it's funny too, because the big churches in Roswell, you think the ones that should have the big programs and everything for this, they want nothing to do with it. But it's the little churches that have a heart for the people and still want them to know the truth. And I thought that was quite interesting, actually. But no, I just shoot from the hip. If they like it, that's okay. If not, I used to try to dance around issues and stuff, but I don't anymore. And Jesus went out of his way to tell people the truth and shoot from the hip, and he infuriated quite a few people. And I figured, hey, if it was okay for him to do it, it's okay for me to do it.
So you just draw it right out there on the sand for him to see it.
Yeah, you can't do it any other way. You really can't, because if you try to, people have a habit of taking you down side roads if you're trying to be subtle and stuff like that. But if you come in like a lion, like a roaring lion, they have to listen, and they do. So that's the way I work at it.
Well, I like that direct approach. I think sometimes that works really effective.
Yeah,
now, you mentioned in your book that the UFO community is akin to religion. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I'd love to. Oh, in every religion, whether it be Catholicism, the mainstream Protestantism, Judaism, or whatever, you have your hierarchy, and it works on down to the common man. You have the deity, of course, and then you have the priests, the prophets, the teachers. They're all laid out in the Bible. Paul laid it out, the hierarchy. And if you look at the UFO community, you see the same thing. You see the deities are the aliens themselves, and then you have the lecturers, which are the evangelists, and you have the people that are coming back with messages from the UFO knots, the aliens, either the abductees or the channelers. Those are the prophets, and it works right on down the line to the common man who believes everything that he hears.
So,
and you have to have
parallel.
Yeah, it's an exact
parallel religion then.
I think so. I really do. Paul said in Hebrews 1:11, talking about faith, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So when you look at it, it's saying that you're having hope in things that you're not seeing, and isn't that what the UFO community is doing? We see pictures of lights in the sky and maybe a disc in the sky and stuff like that, but that's no real hard evidence. To me, it's not. But people are believing from the little tidbits that they get and from what they hear the speakers saying. It would be no different than me going to a church, not knowing anything about church, and hearing the pastor talk about Jesus and stuff like that. I would be hearing him talk about a person that I'd never met before, that he's really never met except through a relationship with God, hopefully. And then I believe by what the pastor tells me. Isn't that what the low man on the totem pole in the UFO community does? He just believes what he does because what he hears everybody else saying.
David, this is Joe. I got a question for you. In 2008, you and Joe Jordan did a presentation in Roswell that really caused a stir in the secular UFO research community. What was it that made them so upset?
Well, like I said, when you challenge somebody's philosophy, you're actually challenging themselves. What they were upset about with the presentation was they didn't understand that we were bringing the aliens into the courtroom and putting them on trial. But, when we got out of there, I was thinking to myself, well, if they're treating the aliens as deities and we put the aliens on trial, we're really putting their belief on trial, and we're putting them on trial, because it would be no different than if I believed that Joe the plumber was God, and then all of a sudden Joe the plumber was put on trial and down at the local courthouse. I would be insulted that the authorities thought that they could arrest Joe the plumber, and I would be out there with a sign trying to get him freed and stuff, and so they didn't like the fact that we challenged their thoughts, and they also made reference to a God bomb You can bring up any religion to these people that believe in the UFOs, and any religion is accepted except born-again Christianity, Torah-believing Jews, and the like, because those two religions, or faiths, I should say, they hold accountability, okay? And that's what the world doesn't want. They don't want accountability. They don't want to have to answer to a deity, to a God. They want a God that's going to answer to them. So when you bring up the Bible or you bring up God, all of a sudden you could hear, it's like watching Star Trek. You can hear the alarms come on, red alert, arm the phasers, put up the shields, and it's because they don't want to have anything to do with the only real true religion or belief that there is, and they'd rather have a faith in a religion that tickles their itching ears, I think is what the Scripture says. So yeah, we go. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You want to say something?
No, we are talking with David Ruffino. He is not only a minister, but he is the author of the upcoming book, Unholy Communion, the alien abduction phenomenon, where it originates and how it stops. David, in the book you talk about something that is almost astonishing, and that is that Jesus had encounters with aliens. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I'd love to. We're making the assertion here that the aliens that we see today and the demons and fallen angels that have always been around are the same creatures. So hence, when you see that Jesus having an encounter with a demoniac that's full of a legion of demons, or any of the many accounts in the New Testament where Jesus had to cast out demons, he was dealing with the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which were the sons of the fallen angels and women. So hence, if the angels are purporting to be aliens, the fallen angels are purporting to be aliens, and they're the ones their sons are the ones that are causing all the problems, you could say that Jesus had encounters with alien beings. In essence, that's what I'm trying to say in the book, trying to make the equation that they're all one and the same. And if you look at the effect that that Jesus had on the demons, and the effect that his name and a relationship with him now has on the demons that try to come against us, or the fallen angels, what have you, and how they repel and they run away, just like they did from Jesus. So they're the same thing, is what I'm trying to equate in the book. And his name and his power has the same effect back then as it does now. One of the things that we found when ministering to people, because a lot of people, the minute that you mention Jesus on the phone, they want to hang up, but you have to subtly, and I believe the Holy Spirit's the only one that can help you do this, you have to subtly make the comparison between the aliens that they say are bothering them and the demons that we know, or the fallen angels that we know that they are. And once you can do that, then you can effectively minister a lot easier. If you don't, then the minute that you bring up Jesus Christ, they want to go away real quick. I remember there was one fella that I was talking to one day, and while I was talking to him on the phone, the demons were manifesting, and not to me, but to him, telling him, "Oh, get off the phone, you don't want to do this," and stuff. And I said, "Hey, let's do a little experiment here." And I was talking to him, and I would mention the name Jesus and tell him something about Jesus, his power and his authority and stuff. And I would stop and I'd say, "Now the demons just told you that what I said was a crock of lies, right?" And I won't say the real words I said, because this is a radio program. And he said, "Yeah, that's exactly what they said." And we talked a little further, and I said, "Now they just told you that I'm full of baloney, right?" And he was, "Yeah, that's exactly what they said, word for word." And we did this about 4 or 5 times. And I said, "Okay, now, so who's greater? The demons that are lying to you, or Jesus that was telling me exactly what the demons were saying?" And he goes, "Well, I guess Jesus is." And I said, "Well, doesn't that make you want to have a relationship with him so you can get rid of the things that are whispering in your ear all the time?" "Oh, I'm not ready for that yet." So that's the kind of stuff that we deal with.
And thus the other part of Unholy Communion, which uses literally scores of eyewitnesses, experiencer accounts that were given in person to you, to your investigators, The thing I found astonishing about this book is how you employed this careful analysis of facts, findings. You're confronting these preconceived ideas even about aliens, who they are, what they want, and ultimately this book literally unveils. I'm endorsing this. Dr. Mike Kaiser, others, David Williamson. The idea that you have analytical duplication. This was the thing that stood out to me, is that the way you approach this book, nobody has ever approached a book on aliens and alien abduction and deliverance from this phenomenon, in that you did it almost scientifically. You used the kind of guidelines that an investigator would use, or a scientist would use, who wanted to get a study peer-reviewed, where you are providing repeatability, and therefore through repeatability you can prove cause and effect. That's compelling. That's a scientific approach to doing something, so that in the end you have evidence where the dots have been connected between these aliens, supernatural, deliverance. But at the end of it, what is most astonishing is how that the name of Jesus Christ emerges in a way that I think is going to shock the public, because it's not like you can call out on the name of Mickey Mouse or Mickey Mantle or any other Mickey. The name of Jesus Christ does something to these entities that nothing else does. And I think this is going to be controversial. It's going to be controversial, highly controversial.
Yeah.
And yet, for the faith community, it is going to be such a confirmation to them that in heaven, there is only one name under heaven and earth where every principality, every power has to bow to that authority, and that is the name of Jesus Christ. So kudos to you. There seems to be a controversy, though, even among people in the Christian UFO research field, and I want to ask you about this, as to whether the abduction phenomenon is psychic, spiritual, or physical, meaning a lot of things. You could employ the name of Jesus to deliver somebody from something that is a psychological problem, a spiritual problem, a physical problem. But in your view, what is it?
Well, yeah, it's all of the above, actually, because Joe himself has cases where people have actually been there when these people said that the aliens were coming to get them, and these people have not moved 1 inch. They sat there with their eyes closed and fluttering, their skin cold to the touch, almost like they're in a catatonic state. Yet they've been there, and when they come back, they have a message. And I don't know if Joe told you, but the one guy in question that I can think of when that happened was he told Joe that the aliens were ticked off at him, and Joe said, why are they ticked off? And the man said, because they know that you know what's going on. Okay, so in that sense, it was just a trip in his mind or a trip in his spirit. I don't know, but he stayed put. We also have to remember that Jesus said that when he comes back, it's going to be like in the days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, this was a physical act. It was the sons of God, the fallen angels, that came down and actually had physical relations with the women, the human women. So if it was a physical thing before the flood, and Jesus said it's going to be just as it was before the flood, then it leads me to believe that Jesus knew what he was talking about, and that it was going to be a physical thing, albeit it's not the sons of God coming down and marrying women anymore. It's being done more of in a clinical nature, in laboratories and stuff like that aboard the UFOs or wherever they are when they go to those places. But Joe's right, and so is the people in the physical camp, because some of these things are physical. I can't see it any other way. Just from the evidence that we've had, from the things that people have said they've experienced, from Scripture, from what Jesus said, it's got to be both physical and spiritual, in my estimation, and in the estimation of a lot of people that I have dealings with and ministry with.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the days of Noah. The English theologian George Hawkins Pember, in his 1876 masterpiece, Earth's Earliest Ages, he analyzed the prophecy of Jesus Christ that said the end times would be a repeat of the days of Noah. And Pember, in the 1800s, outlined how all of the first 6 of those 7 great causes of the antediluvian destruction were being documented in his time. The developmental beginnings were starting in his time, but one had not yet started, and he called this the 7th and most fearful sign. And here's what he wrote. He said it would be the return of the spirits of the Nephilim, the appearance upon earth of beings from the principality of the air, and their unlawful intercourse with the human race, end quote. What an extraordinary thing from the 1800s. You think we're seeing that now with the Royal Academy of Scientists out there talking about we're facing this possible conclusion that we are being studied by extraterrestrial intelligence? You've got the Vatican. What's going on with the Vatican? They're taking a keen interest in aliens, even endorsing the notion that they exist, calling them our space brothers. What's going on with that? Is this a sign of the days of Noah?
Oh, yeah, sure it is. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Where the Vatican is concerned, I think we already talked about the English people, but where the Vatican is concerned, I have quite an alarm raised about that, because the Vatican has influence over, I think, over 1 billion people. I think there's over 1 billion Roman Catholic people around the world. I'm just really concerned about over 1 billion people that are going to be told that this is okay, and their souls are going to be in question because they're going to fall for a big lie, and it's going to be one of the biggest ones. Jesus even said that. So,
David, we're going to run out of time here in a few minutes. Please tell people how they can learn more about you, your websites,
and your chat.
Okay, yeah, my website that my wife and I share is the Delusion Resistance, and that's www.delusionresistance.org. We welcome anybody to come check us out. The ministry site that we share with Jim and some other folks is papsi.org. That's www.paapsi.org. Just think about having a drink of Pepsi. That's one of the reasons I use that name. And our chat room site, if you want to find out more about it, you can go to I've set up a website. It's www.remnantcall144k.net. Okay, and you can go there and you can find out how to get onto the chat room. Everybody's welcome to the chat room. It's on Pal Talk, and all you got to do is get a membership. It's free, and then download the software and come join us on Monday nights and Thursday nights at 6 o'clock Eastern. That would be 9 o'clock. 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. Monday nights we have just a regular chat night, a fellowship night, and the Thursday nights is usually a teaching by either Jim or myself. It has to do with current events or what our ministry is all about. Yeah, we'd love to see everybody come and visit us. That would be wonderful.
All right, we've been talking to David Ruffino, ordained minister, and of course the most fascinating author of an unprecedented book, over 500 pages of extraordinary research in this new book titled Unholy Communion, the Alien Abduction Phenomenon, Where It Originates and How It Stops. And this book will be available, I think, as of about May 2010, which is just, 45 days now. So if you're listening to this series anytime after that time, look up this book, get a copy of the book. David, thank you for joining us for this special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Raiders Live News Talk Radio. We'll continue in a moment. Don't go away.